Dr. Joe Bufiel, and it is Abundant Health Naturally. And today we're going to talk about making a sandwich and how it affects our gut. Thanks for tuning in.
Or maybe not making that sandwich, but go ahead.
Oh, my question is really, are you hungry? Are you hungry for information?
So, by the way, I'm Phyllis Russo, Dr. Phyllis Russo.
Sorry, Phyllis. Hey, everybody. Dr. Phyllis Russo is with us again here today. We're going to talk about the gut-brain connection and how Dr. Dash Live Well can get you living well. Before we started this little bit right here, when we talk about eating and how what we eat, you are what you eat and how it affects your everyday life. I was looking through this book that you have read, this particular book you've studied under Dr. Datis Karazian, if I pronounced that correctly.
You actually pronounced his name better than I do. I would say Karazian, it actually is Karazian. So, yeah. So you
There is a section in his book about digestion connection and how it affects our thyroid, low thyroid issues. But there's a picture, and I wish I could really do it justice on the screen here. And we may add this in at some point in time, but there's a picture of this young lady holding her stomach with a toilet in the background. And on the table next to her is a bag of chips, a bowl of cereal, maybe a box of wheat crackers, and a soda. I'm assuming it's a soda. It's a container with a straw sticking out of it. But the caption, it's really interesting. It says, poor digestive health is extremely common in this country and a major contributor to our thyroid function, a low thyroid function.
Very true.
Let's face it. I've had people in my years of serving folks and educating them say, why do you talk to people about eating? They know how to eat. Sure. We all know how to eat. We know how to stick that fork into that pasta, or that take the bite of, here's the sandwich again, that grab the sandwich and bite into it and chew it down. But do we really know how to feed ourselves?
Right. And
that's the difference.
And how to nourish ourselves. And then also how to prevent the next, like what else could happen from what we eat. And we aren't educated that way. I mean, one of the things that Datis reminds me of is that we just think we're separate. And let me just go into Western medicine real quick. Western medicine was formed with specialties. Oh, you have a gut, we're going to send you to the gastroenterologist. And oh, you have a brain, we're going to send you to the neurologist. And you have a thyroid, and we're going to send you to the endocrinologist. And the thing is, nothing is separate, especially when it comes to gut, inflammation, thyroid, inflammation, brain, inflammation is systemic.
Yeah.
And so the best way to help it, the best way to get our antibodies all together, right? Antibodies are attackers, right? And if you have the wrong food, and if you and dairy don't get along, the antibodies start coming in and attacking, and then inflammation happens. Where does that inflammation go? Just like we're talking from gut to brain, it goes to brain. So when your patients and my patients have gut problems, they usually come across as, in mine, they come across as bloating and, pain, like the girl in the picture, toilets in the background. So we're looking at diarrhea, and we're looking at irritable bowel syndrome and constipation. By the way, constipation is huge, intimate connection with Hashimoto's hypothyroid. And people don't know that. Just between you and me, everybody, every woman in particular, because it's so much higher, more prevalent in women, but really everybody, should get antibody testing, thyroid antibody testing when they're about 16 years old. Everybody. So
Wow.
I got a little bit off the subject, but tell me about your patients and what they experience.
All right. So we talked about the crust, the top of the bread here for the sandwich that we're eating today. Now I'm going to put some avocado mayo on top.
Okay.
All right. In my experience in connecting with patients, when I do a physical exam, chiropractic exam on them, I'm palpating them, and I'm in the thoracic area, mid thoracic, right around say their shoulder blade area, and all of a sudden it's like, man, they got a knot there, and I all of a sudden I say, Mrs. Jones, you've been having some indigestion lately, haven't you? You've been maybe a little bit of bloating. Not every meal, but there's just certain times you've noticed something's a little off and you just didn't know how to put your finger on it. Well, I put my finger on it and it's right here. This particular area between T4 down to T9, we're dealing with a lot of digestive things going on. So, what have you been experiencing? And all of a sudden, it's like, how'd you know that? Well, your body's a crystal ball. I know how to read it, and in knowing the signs, the symptoms, and the check engine light that comes on that you put a tape over and ignore it. So there,
It's our
that's the
autonomic.
point. That's the point. We have a tendency of ignoring those things, thinking it's normal. It's just something I ate, and um, I'll stay away from that for a little bit. But then we go back to it, or it's a part of our everyday routine of choosing the wrong foods. I've raised my daughter in a sense, and good choices, bad choices. Good choices get you reward. Bad choices get you discipline. Discipline's of course correction. Well, when we're in that midst of discipline, we should not want to go back to that feeling again.
Right.
But for some reason,
We do.
we do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of it's kind of this habitual thing. Some of it, I work with my members and we have this community night. And we talk about that. Like, I have to have my sugar at night, and it's such a habit. But we've actually talked about the emotional aspects of it. Like, this is where I run, this is where I hide. Like, they're being real honest about why they go back to it, why they go back to these comfort foods. And I'm going to bring up one of my members in particular. She's doing amazingly well. We did lab work on her for all of her uh, allergies, all of her food allergies. We tested like over 100 food allergies. And she was allergic to a lot of them. Like, sometimes you don't know that because these are what we call, what you and I know as IgGs, immunoglobulin
Hmm.
Gs,
Hmm.
and those don't even surface for like 14 days, 14, 17 days. And so it's not like we have that bloating right away or we have that pain every once in a while. We don't even know what inflammation is happening fully in the system. So these lab works are great. Well, she's had a pretty limited diet. Now, that's not great for the microbiome, and that we can talk about in a little bit about the probiotics and the bacteria that's important, especially in that gut brain connection. But her skin is doing better. Like, you can even see it in her face, but she was having skin breakouts all the time. It could have been with a detergent or something in the house, but it originates in the gut. It originates in that internal inflammation. And so I said, okay, I want you to do this for at least 4 months. I want you to clear this out. You stick with it. Now it's April. And this is the month that I said, yeah, you can introduce something. And it's interesting what she said, because she said, okay, good. Can I introduce chocolate, which was on her list? And I'm going, can you start with something that might be a little bit healthier? Um, and so she wants so bad. She's feeling so good, but she wants so bad to eat something that was habitual for her. And we're starting with something else that was on her list. But the point is that desire in her brain. And I'm like, you know what, though? Just remember how good you've been feeling for these
Hmm.
last 4 months. Now, the good news is She's staying on the community calls. So I have my eye on her. We'll see. I'm going to see her in 2 weeks on our community calls, and I'm always open to text messaging too. We'll see how she's doing. Now, I have a pretty limited diet. I've been eating healthy for years, and once I got that Hashimoto's diagnosis, I am very committed to eating healthy. And all I keep wanting to tell people is I'm 67 years old. I was sick for 8 years after the mold exposure. It wasn't, I mean, it's 8 years away now, so I wasn't sick that whole time. But for a long time, being on the couch, not being able to lift my arms, Hashimoto's was there. Fatigue was disastrous. I mean, paralyzing. Brain fog, couldn't focus. I could never come back to the studies that I do right now and the information that I'm able to give 5 years ago. And so you can't believe how much it does affect the Hashimoto's, how it does affect the brain. And so, do I want to go back to that? No, not at all. Now, I can't say there are people that are just halfway sick. Like I was so sick, I was on the couch every day. And so you're in a point where you go, either I'm going to live or I'm going to die, and I want to live well, which is why I named it Live Well, the program. And so we do have to make these decisions. All I can do, and we'll talk a little bit more about that gut-brain barrier, but or the connection. But I just want people to know, and want your patients to know, that I'm always there. I'm always either a text message away, or those communities are so powerful. So I just wanted to throw that in. You get to ask your next question.
You have a great point there, the sense of community.
Hmm.
Right now, I've laid down the bread, very good, wholesome bread.
Okay, let me just say one thing.
Put some. Wait, come on.
Okay, go
No,
ahead.
making it good. You can correct me in just a second.
It's not
Avocado mayo.
correcting. I just
You're
want
getting some good green leafy lettuce there. Maybe a little bit of tomato, some red peppers, maybe. This is where we get to have fun with this.
Yeah.
You and I have known each other for a very long time.
Just a couple years. I'm not
Just a
that
few
old.
years. I just met you down
Oh,
the
I've just
street.
revealed my age. Anyway, go
No,
ahead.
you did say it, and I know you've lied about it for years.
Yes.
But the interesting thing is, prior to your mold exposure and your health journey, okay, I do recall that in the early days of knowing Phyllis Russo and firsthand chiropractic, working in your office, there were those moments in time, and you have taught me how to eat well because of hanging out with you, having dinners with you and your son Anthony. Uh, we always had salad with our meal. We always had some good wholesome protein. We didn't have sodas to drink. We always had good pH balanced water. I've remembered all this stuff, but I also remembered how Dr. Phyllis Russo poured her heart out to people on a daily basis and was so exhausted and dealing with muscle fatigue. And I mean, even in the midst of eating well, you were still on a journey to live well.
And so that's kind of why I want to share it with everybody, because there's a couple parts that we want to remember on this. And that's why it's so important to do some lab work and really dig deep into each individual. So yes, I will say in my childhood, I ate a 1950s, 60s diet, which was white bread and lots of sugar and Pop Tarts and all that sort of stuff. So it's not that I ate clean my whole life. I noticed I already had problems in my 20s, which is interesting because, and again, I wasn't eating well back then. But I did start trying to eat better, probably closer in my late 20s and 30s. But I did suffer exhaustion and fatigue when I was in chiropractic school because I was type A personality. So I went to the hilt on that and hardly got any sleep. And the same thing when I first started my practice. I digress. There are sometimes genetic problems, and I will make you a bet. That's why I want to say every female needs to get tested with antibodies when they're like 16 years old, because I probably had Hashimoto's from the very beginning. I think my mother did. My mother was very ill all the time, and I have a genetic liver component that actually does not. Uh, I can't produce my own glutathione, and that was genetic. Like I have no alleles for that, zero. I have to have taking glutathione from the outside. And I'll make you a bet, my mom, the same thing happened to her. And so that's the thing about even when I got exposed to the mold, I probably had Hashimoto's 20 years ago when you knew me,
Yep.
when you knew that exhaustion and that fatigue and that brain fog that I even had back then. But because I'm thin, I didn't associate it with hypothyroidism because usually you'll see um, a more robust patient, and I always was thin, and so mark my words, there are thin patients that have Hashimoto's hypothyroid, and quite a few actually. So anyways, I think that was sort of a answer to your middle of your meat, red
What?
pepper.
No, we're just getting to the meat of it. So, uh, so let me ask you, you know, what is the right way to nourish our
Okay.
gut?
Well, and let's just, since I want to do it even according to the brain, but because you don't want your gut, um, what am I, inflamed. How do you keep it not inflamed, right? You want a good microbiome. That means good prebiotics that live in there, good gut bacteria. That's the best way to say it. Why? Because these gut bacteria actually have a job. Their job is to produce good peptide hormones. Their job is to produce good substances that nourish the brain. Good substances like selenium. Selenium is sort of naturally produced within the system. You can get it from outside, but that decreases the inflammation that goes to the thyroid. So you want a good microbiome. How do you do that? You eat some really good vegetables. You have um, fermented foods, things like that that keep that biome really strong. Sometimes people take outside probiotics. I would try to get as much from the gut, from our foods, as much as possible. But then the other part is keeping that inflammation low. So, what doesn't start that autoimmune? So, this is the part I focus on a lot, and that is sugar intake. Sugar intake will destroy the protein in the gut, which makes it a leaky gut, and all these proteins start coming through the gut. That's a kind of the simplest way I can say it. So any of these wheats and grains, they're high carbohydrates, so they go through they make the leaky gut. They go through, but they actually destroy the gut lining.
So you're
How?
telling me we have holes
In our
in our
gut.
intestine.
Yes, absolutely.
But see,
Where
I'm only saying it that way because most people don't realize that.
yeah,
Most people think what I eat goes down this tube, gets in my stomach, and then eventually out the other tube, and then we poop it out. Okay. They don't know the whole manufacturing process of breaking down and the effects of everything. I mean, just you said one huge word there that people are addicted to. 10 times more addicted than cocaine. I have no idea about it because I've never done it. Sugar.
yeah,
A tablespoon of sugar will decrease our white blood cell count for up to 4 hours. There's that immune response.
yeah.
So we're already insulting our body, the microbiome, the gut, the brain, the inflammatory. Call the fire department. Let's put it out. I mean,
And
it's
part of
tough.
that, yeah, part of that is those, we have whole mechanisms of how to call the fire department and put it out. But after a while, that constant assault, the firemen aren't even coming anymore.
Oh,
Oh,
you
it's
mean
just,
the boy that cried wolf? He cried wolf plenty of times, and they finally said, "I ain't coming anymore."
yeah. And that's when people, and that's that part where people go, now I have a problem. And so I want to talk a little bit about even Alzheimer's and dementia. I mean, we even before that, foggy headedness and oh, I can't remember things and lack of concentration, things like that. That comes from the gut.
Yeah.
You don't need to go to the neurologist. You need to fix your gut. You need to eat the right foods. Now, there's one issue with grains too, and especially wheat. We talk about gluten sensitivity, which is absolute celiac disease, which is a genetic gluten sensitivity, basically. But I mean, there's more to it than that. But then the thing about our gut is okay, and it's funny. I'm actually losing my train of thought here. Yep, break me, baby. I have so much in my mind that I want to share. So get me back on this train of thought, would you please? Oh, now you're gone.
No,
Uh,
no. The fire department's been called too many times, and
yeah.
the body has a way of correcting things. If we do the wrong thing long enough, it's going to lay down a let's put it this way, a different pathway,
Right.
a workaround, as our liberal
But
government
even
would
after
say.
a while, the workarounds don't work anymore. That's kind of
Oh,
what I'm trying to say. And that has to do with all these antibodies that are going now after the brain, right? And they're saying, hey, we've got to, um, we start destroying the brain. And this is what happens. And the first sign is things like foggy headed, but we don't even realize it. People go, oh, I'm so depressed or I'm so anxious. Depression and anxiety come from the gut.
agreed.
Comes from the gut because we produce good neurotransmitters. There's GABA in the gut. There's several different neurotransmitters that are actually in the gut that the drugs that they give people for anxiety and depression affect the brain, but they're also destroying the gut because they're affecting those neurotransmitters in the gut. And they're vital to even be there. So I mean, people have, you don't have to realize anything, but I'm trying to have you realize that everything starts in the gut, just about.
Well, there it has to then come back around to what we initially said, is that 60 to 80% of our immune responses start in our gut.
Absolutely.
So again, you are what you eat. You have to make the right choices. How are we going to make those right choices? You have to be better informed of what you need to be eating on a daily basis, per meal, whether you are fasting, intermittent fasting. When we break that fast, whatever meal of the day it is, what are we choosing to eat? Little example, I have a young lady right now, not really young, but she's chosen to go through a program with me to lose some weight. In about 4 weeks period of time, she's down 21 pounds. She can't see it though in her own eyes, her mind's eyes, the progress that she's making, but she has changed her portions. She's changed the foods that she's eating. She's removing a lot of that inflammation, the inflammatory responses that continually happen, which is the crescendo of water filling up in her body because of her liver being insulted. She's making progress. I got to show her through the data, the numbers. Hey, here's where you were. Here's where you're at now.
Mhm.
You know what she misses the most? The alcohol.
Mhm.
What she did to hide the pain due to her structural issues in her back.
Mhm.
You know, we all, the biggest thing is everybody's got to understand we all have a story.
Yes.
Where do you fit in that story? And when are you willing to feel safe enough to
Mhm.
open up and allow your story to be heard?
I can't, I can't say that any better. It's our story that gets us to where we are and know that it's a safe place to tell your story. I love that she admitted that to you because that's a great start to give her comfort, um, and know that you can help along the way and that we now kind of can hone in on that. how is she doing with that? I'm curious.
It's not easy
Yeah.
because when you're used to doing something and you may be in an environment where everybody else around you is entrenched in those activities, it's hard. But 21 days to create a new habit, another 21 days you start to establish a new routine. So it's a matter of you're making choices. You're making better choices than you had before, and you will see the results. It's just there's time involved and it's a process. You have to be willing to make those changes.
Well, and again, I go back to the community thing because I love our support that we have because so many of the people on that call, the ones that I do, are and what nobody's mentioned alcohol, but they are entrenched and they are surrounded by people who are entrenched in bad habits and any bad habits. People don't exercise, it's like, oh, let's do this instead. And so that's why the community is so important to them too. Like we go, okay, let's get up and exercise. I'll do that on community hours. I'll do qigong. It's kind of a mind body movement exercise. Um, and we do it together, and there is a sense of community and a sense of good feeling. And I always mention, hey, this is what you do. I want you in the gym, even if you're in there for 10 minutes. When I was sick at first, and this is my story, when I was sick at first, I remember hearing someone say to me, go to the gym even if it's only for 10 minutes. And I got out of my house, I went to that gym, I went on the treadmill for 10 minutes, and at that point, that's all I could do. I've run a 5K recently, but at that point, that's all I could do. And I walked out. I said I did it. And I did it again and again and again. And so I talk to people about, because you don't want to overdo people who are inflamed with exercise. You don't want them to go in and work out their weights and do a lot of things because that raises the cortisol and it can actually make the inflammation worse, fatigue worse, depression. It won't usually do depression worse, but it can make fatigue worse, which then in turn can make depression worse. So again, you're right. Everybody's story, just know, at least here, that this is what I'm providing is this wonderful support to people, as well as I do wag my finger every once in a while. I want you to do this. I kind of do that, but I do it in love, and
Yeah.
I usually do it with fun and with joy, and know that because I've been through so much of it, and even though weight loss, believing me, by the way, with my Hashimoto's, I had to lose a considerable amount of weight too. I kept gaining weight every single day. Then it started becoming a joke. I couldn't fit into anything. So yes, I was thin for many, many years, but when that Hashimoto's really hit, I was gaining weight every day. So I get it. Like I understand. I'm going to put it this way. God has allowed me, the Lord has allowed me to be ill in many instances and times in my life. I'm really getting tired of it though. But at many instances in my life where I almost teach from that aspect. And that's kind of where my love and my understanding and my compassion has come from. I know what it feels like. So keep that in mind. Are we ready to get to the bottom of the sandwich?
Well, it could be an open face sandwich where
No, you got to get to. You, by the way,
the bottom of it is doing something
yeah,
is better than doing nothing at all.
absolutely. And really, this is where this is where I come in for anybody who really needs it. That we work together. This is where we say, you know what? Let me look at that lab work. Let me see if there's any antibodies showing up. That's where I do that kind of complete lab work. This is where we say we got to do something. We got to go into a direction that's going to get all of us better or even prevent something from happening. And that's where I say, come to the free webinars at hashimotoswarrior.com/webinar. Or if you want to consult with me on it, hashimotoswarrior.com. And then the program, you'll see a little bit of it. It's kind of a members only, but there is things in to the public. And there's a cool 40-minute video that explains everything. That's on Hashimoto'sWarrior.com, but it's also on dr-livewell.com. So, and well, we can talk about the sandwich and where we came up with that, but we'll leave that for another time because I like this whole sandwich thing.
Well, I think the biggest thing is you're calling them out to action in the sense of, hey, this is where you can find more information to engage with you, Dr. Phyllis Rousseau, Dr. Ash Live Well. That engagement can lead into furthering action, changing. We need to change before we have to, but a lot of times we're already in that situation where we have to change. But it's never too late to go back and repair. Yeah. I believe the things that you've said that are on Hashimoto'sWarrior.com in that webinar may also have the information of what should I be eating? Mm-hmm. What are those things for my gut? But the biggest takeaway for everybody is avoid sugar. If you do one thing from watching this 15-minute video here is stop the sugar. Start cutting it out as much as possible. And honestly, you got to read things because it's hidden in everything. Your shredded cheese that you buy in the deli to put on your tacos on Taco Tuesday, there's sugar in that. There's wheat in that. You have to know how to decipher that. And that's where Dr. Dash Live Well can teach you how to do those things.
So a couple of things I want to add. We didn't get into it, and we'll get into it another time, is that those BPAs in your plastic bottles. So I would say sugar and BPAs are right neck and neck. That you want to get, if you're drinking water out of a plastic bottle, you want to change that up. Last but not least, this is a partnership that Dr. Joe Bafiel and I have, that when we will always, if you're a patient of Dr. Joe's, we're always working in partnership. I know that he is taking it from his end and we're talking together about each individual patient. But that's what I love about these podcasts, is that there's partnership between the two of us for your patients. And eventually I'll call them clients, even though I'm a physician, I'll call them clients because I'm a big educator. And that's kind of how I love to work with you. So, and we just love to, this is kind of cool because we're having that opportunity to really see each other and visit with each other again. We haven't done that in a long
time. The thing that the big takeaway from the global issue that we had a few years ago, I don't like to give it its name because it gives it life. It has allowed us to have a better opportunity to reach out and connect with people in this venue. Because here I am in northeastern Pennsylvania, you're out in the middle of the country. Your clients can come from all over. Yeah. They just need to connect with you. And that's what we're asking you to do, is if anything that we have touched upon nudged you just a little bit, reach out. Ask for more information. How can we help you? This is a safe environment. We're not here to suck you into something that is going to steer you in the wrong direction. Absolutely. We're just here to help serve.
Love it.
All right.
Thank you for having me here. Appreciate it.
Right. I appreciate everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We will be back again with more information, especially talking about the BPA, the plastics in your drinking or your food containers leaching in and affecting your gut, inflammation, and your hormones.